Now, there can be no doubt that most airlines depend on passengers to make their profits. But when the pandemic hit and international travel ground to a halt, some companies had to adapt to survive. Well, AirX, the private jet operator, was able to capitalise on the number of customers choosing to fly privately. But it also decided to strip the seats out of one of its Airbus aircraft and operate it as a cargo plane instead. So how has all that impacted revenues? Well, here to join me now is the CEO, John Matthews. John, very good morning to you. I mean, clearly you did pretty well as during the pandemic as more people chose to fly private jets. How have things been since commercial aviation restarted?
Well, it was tough at the beginning, as we discussed in our first interview. Regrettably, we took little to no whiskey at all, I'm afraid to tell you. But we did take oxygen into Peru. We've been supplying 40 to 50 tons per trip of COVID support around the world. And in fact, the operation has been so successful, it's now attracted a retail billionaire in the UK to look at growing it quite sizably. So I think we're on the cusp of something quite exciting here with regards to a cargo section of the airline.
Oh, can you tell us more about that?
I've been told by my team I'm not allowed to, but I think he wouldn't mind. I mean, I'm talking at the moment with the founder of Boohoo about working together and trying to grow a cargo section of the airline in quite a large proportion, looking at trying to operate, say, 4 or 5 cargo aircraft to start with over the next 3 to 4 years.
Ah, that's very exciting. I mean, how big a part of the business could that become, John?
Well, you know, taking out these seats was not really a strategy. It's because I was just scared. I didn't know how to get work for it. And it's quite surprising. So the aircraft, as a VIP aircraft flying head of state, high net worth individuals, that used to attract, say, 1 million a month. We're now doing about $950,000 a week on the cargo aircraft. So if we can get 4 or 5 of these going, it'd be incredible. And we're buying aircraft that are in storage. I mean, sometimes we're buying aircraft for as little as $2 million, and we're attracting $900,000 of revenue a week once we finish getting them airworthy, etc.
These are some of the aircraft, presumably, that the major carriers have been retiring from their fleets over the last few months.
Exactly right. So, in fact, if you look at the situation at the height of COVID, there was about 16,500, 17,000 airliners grounded throughout the world, and a lot of those are not returning. So, you know, when people say they've doubled their figures, that just might mean that they've taken off twice a day, not once, sort of thing. So there's still a lot of airliners on the ground.
And what about jet fuel costs, John? I mean, we've spoken to a fair few airline CEOs recently. I mean, most of them are seeking to pass this on where they can. Does that apply to cargo customers as well?
Yeah, I mean, we have an opportunity where we're rolling out this carbon offset to try and help with the carbon side of things. With regards to jet fuel, it's not a high proportion of our costs, really, because we don't fly the same frequency as an airliner does. It's quite small. It's perhaps 18, 20% of our overheads, where it's much higher in a commercial airline.
Now, you mentioned earlier on some of the routes that you've been running. Which are the big cargo routes that you've run most frequently over recent months?
We flew a lot to Chicago, a hell of a lot. But we got told yesterday that the apron is full. It's fully booked. Chicago's shut because of so much cargo. So now we're looking at other alternate airports. It's driven mainly by the Chinese shippers. They decide where we go because there's such a backlog, which is tough. You know, you've got to get in really early to these airports, and that's why we've got to find these aircraft. In fact, to raise money to find the aircraft, we've now appointed Zeus Capital to start the pre-IPO equity round, which should be starting in Q1, run by Richard Hughes. So if we can raise some money in between, not just for our balance sheet, but also for growth, that'd be incredible for the business.
Right. So, I mean, how much would you be looking to raise? Can you give me an idea?
Yeah, I can. For all of my mistakes, which are many, I would have to tidy up the balance sheet on the trials and tests I've done in the past. So let's say 20 to 30 million for the balance sheet. That then shores us up to be a company which can raise money a lot cheaper. Then perhaps I'd like to raise something like 30 to 40 million in equity. If I can take out the fleet with regards to the cost of the fleet, say 30, 40 million, that produces like 10, 13 million a year in net cash. If you imagine that as 1/3 dividend cover, that's an attractive opportunity. And then Investec, who are just a great bank, they've supported me all the way through, are now looking at putting in some debt into the business to take out my expensive leases and then supply me with a lower cost of capital, that should give us another 2 to 3 million cash increase a year. So even in our worst years in COVID, we've managed to produce 17 million EBITDA, which for us as a small company is quite some going.
It really is. John, very informative chat with you today. Hopefully see you again before too long. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed.